Hey, beautiful people. My name is Kristen. My cat, Chunky, also known as Smokey Joe, is with me today. I came in to film a couple tags, and he had to get in the chair, jumped up in the chair the second before I sat down. It's like animals have an uncanny way of knowing how to be in the way or to sit with you and get love when they want some, right? So today I have a tag that I will be doing. I wrote down all the questions because I want to be sure to honor the original tag, which I will link below. I was tagged by my good friend Michele at Books Cause Insomnia, and I have been neglectful in catching up with my tags, but I'm excited to share it with you today. So the first question said, before publishing her first collection of poetry in the early 60s, Margaret Atwood had several other jobs, including working at summer camp. What was your first job? So besides like mowing lawn and babysitting, which technically is a first job because you get paid for that, but my first like professional or W-2 job was cashiering at a grocery store, and I really loved it. Number two, while growing up, Margaret Atwood's family spent several months each year living in the bush in northern Ontario. What is a survival skill that you have that would help you survive living off the grid? So I've always considered myself a city girl and always kind of joked that I would die if there was ever an apocalypse and we had to live off the grid. I have since married a man who has been teaching me how to hunt, fish, trap, and jar, preserve, jelly, all that kind of stuff. And it's been fascinating. And I'm actually a little bit better than I thought I'd be. Still not good. So maybe my best skill is marrying into somebody else who knows how to do it. Is that a skill? Number three, Margaret Atwood grew up reading comic books. Do you have a favorite comic book or comic book character? And I don't think I've ever read a comic book. If I did, I probably DNF'd it because I have just never really given them a fair chance even. So no, I do love superhero movies. So I love like the humor of Iron Man and the mythology and super like heroics of Thor and all those kind of epic stories that DC and Marvel put together. But I've not read the comics. And I don't really know that I feel like I want to. It's kind of interesting. Margaret Atwood is not only a poet and author, she has also illustrated books and shown her creativity in so many other ways. What are some ways you are creative? I thought for many, many years that I had zero creativity. I tried to paint, I tried to draw. I really had a love for it and wanted to be good, but I was never good. And I tried theater. I even could have majored in theater. I changed it to communication arts because the truth is I'm not all that talented. But I've discovered that we're all creative in different ways. So the way I now think I'm creative is I am a teacher and Christian educator in the church, and I put together a whole bunch of other resources and happenings and other people's ideas. And I think I'm very creative in how I will adapt and put things together and build out things in a new way. And that's creativity. So we're creative even if we don't originally come up with things, but we take things and adapt things and make them work to our own context. That's creativity in my mind. Number five, some of Margaret Atwood's writing is inspired by myths, folktales, and fairy tales. What's your favorite myth, folktale, or fairy tale, and why? So I do like folktales and, how the moon came about and, why the tides rise and all those kind of things are fun. But if I'm thinking about it, my honest favorite folk tale and everything is something that I mention in a lot of my videos, and that's J.R.R. Tolkien, Lord of the Rings. This to me is just the foundation of most good myths, classics, folk tales, and fantasy lore. So I'm just gonna throw that out there because that's what I do. The same as maybe the creator of this tag loves Margaret Atwood. Margaret Atwood, most well known for her novel The Handmaid's Tale, which I have not read. What is a task or chore that you wish a maid or servant had a maid or servant for? So I would always feel uncomfortable hiring somebody else to do something like that, even though you're paying them money and that's their job. That's what they're signing up to do. And there have been times when I have been particularly ill or unable to clean my own house, but it always makes me uncomfortable. But if I had a magic system that could automatically do something for me, the real answer to which chore I like the least is the floors. I mean, maybe that's cheating because there's like vacuuming and mopping and all those things, but basically if I could dust and scrub and wipe down and laundry and do everything, but anything that fell on the floor would just automatically be clean, sign me up. Don't like the floors. The themes Margaret Atwood writes about have stayed consistent in all her writings for over 6 decades. She writes about the role of men and women in society, relationship, religion, marriage, and identity, to name a few. If Atwood were to write a novel about you, what are some things she would need to include? So I think she would need to include my faith or my basic value system. And then I think if any author were to write about my life and have it be anywhat interesting, I think it would need to reflect upon how my faith system and values have gotten me through the course of several interesting relationships. I am on my 3rd marriage. I have great humor about this, but there's a lot of life and a lot of lessons. And I think the ups and downs and the humor and the turmoil and the growth and the compassion and the life understanding that you gain through that kind of journey would be the thing that would most make for an interesting novel and maybe help other people reflect or identify on the different levels. I don't know. Number 8, Margaret Atwood has created words for her novels, and she's talked about how this makes it difficult for translation of her work. Yeah, I can imagine. Do you have a favorite word, and why is it your favorite? So I love words like inconceivable, that come from like Princess Bride, and then they get made into all these different meanings and nuances, and they're just funny. And indubitably is another one that I just chuckle almost every time somebody actually uses that word. My actual favorite word is apparently. So I don't know why, except for it just brings me to that point where I'm like really listening, and it's almost always useful in ironic humor. So it's like, apparently I was supposed to know that I was supposed to bring my ID to this event, or apparently everybody knew to wear this or that, or, things are apparent, but usually they're not apparent to me. It's usually a self kind of reflection or a jab or reflection on life, like, talking about apparently this is a subject everybody's already taken. It's just, I don't know. That's why I love the word apparently. Margaret Atwood was born in Canada and lives in Canada now, but she's also lived in other countries like the United States, England, France, Germany, and Scotland. It's pretty good. What countries have you lived in, or another country you would like to live in? So I've only lived in the United States, and I have only lived in 3 states, Texas, Alaska, and Virginia. And if I could live in another country, though, I would like to live in either England or Ireland, and I would like to live in New Zealand, because those are all countries that there are a lot of things there that I really am interested in seeing and exploring more. So if I lived there, that would be the perfect opportunity and home base to explore and do and see those things. So that would be why. Although, honestly, I'm up for an adventure, and if I had a solid reason to go live in just about any country, as long as I didn't feel like it was completely unsafe, um, I would be willing to consider. Uh, Margaret Atwood is an advocate for caring for the earth. What's something you do to help take care of our planet? So I do recycle, and I do try to be mindful of letting water run or leaving lights on that don't have to be on and turning them off. But probably the coolest thing that comes to mind when I read this question is when I was doing a mission in Georgia and we learned about the sea turtles and all the trash and debris that hurts them, and I started sponsoring a turtle that was being rehabbed there in a center, and they would send me pictures or letters, and it was finally released. His name was Fiji, and he was finally released back into the wild, minus a flipper that had to be amputated. And it just brought me to tears and brought so much joy just to learn about that and that process, and just feeling like, I mean, the life of one saved animal seems insignificant, but it's in the individuals that I think we touch the world, and it does matter. So, uh, let's see. It says Margaret Atwood is passionate about animal rights, so kind of goes along with that. She'd probably be happy about the turtle. And some of her writing has included animals or reflections on animals. What's a topic you're passionate about? So, in general, if it's a situation where there needs to be education, or there could be learning, or maybe there's a problem or issue, but I view that if both sides understood or learned about the other person's point of view, that it would be so much smoother and easier, and that so many problems of the world are really about not understanding the other person's view or story. And so just the love of learning and the heart for education, both formally, which I feel like our education system has really gotten messed up in the United States, and if there's little things that I can do to advocate or help with that, I usually jump on board. Just anything we can do to support teachers or educators, because education is foundational. It's shown in so many different societies and programs in other countries that if you bring in education, it changes cycles for the better, period. It just does. Number 12. Margaret Atwood is supportive of new authors in a variety of ways. Who is a newer author, and what debut novel do you wish more people knew about? So I had to kind of look over references because I'm not always familiar with what are the debut novels. One that came up that is actually on the top of my TBR stack that I pledged to get to this year is The Girl Who Smiled Beads. So this is a memoir of a girl who was running for her life basically out of Rwanda, and just her journey through several countries, and talking about that kind of political, about immigration, about all of her experiences. And I haven't read it yet, so I don't know that I can completely recommend it, but I have read and have the same experience with this debut novel, A Stone of Hope. This is a memoir by Jim St. Germain, who was a young teenager who came over from Haiti and took refuge in New York, in I think it was Brooklyn or a suburb of New York City, and grew up just learning not only about adapting to the culture in America, but also a real viewpoint on being other, being a foreigner, and then getting education and getting really encouraged to continue that education and to break a lot of the cycles of poverty and situations that he found himself in naturally because of his environment, but went all the way to become a lawyer, very educated, into Washington, D.C., and into platforms where his voice was heard. And so it goes again into that kind of passion I have for education, but just told in a very down to earth, easy to read way that educates me. And I think I don't know that he's written other novels, but he has a lot of writings and a lot of advocacy work. And I think that if a lot of us read, if not that book, but other books like those, that we would have just a more educated and probably compassionate view to talk about some of these situations that are going on in our world today. And then it says, tag people that you would like to do this. So this is an older tag, but I do want to mention and shout out a couple channels that I don't think have done it. And just to let you know, Shannon at Shannon's Book Musings, she is a woman who is just very well spoken. She has a lot of background and education in psychology and understanding how human behavior works, and so a lot of her reviews and reflections are upon that. She does also a lot of classics like I do, so I think she may have read some Margaret Atwood, which I have not, so that would be good. And then also I want to tag Gloria Z. Thompson. She was, I think, recently called out by Olive at a Book Olive and got a whole bunch of new activity and subscribers, and she deserves it. You should go check her out if you haven't already. She has a lot of book readings that are the same as mine, or I learn a lot of what I like because we have some pretty close similar tastes and viewpoints on things, and I'm almost positive she has not done this tag. So those are my tags. If I have not tagged you and you are one of my booktubers out there that I watch and correspond with a lot, I've got more tags coming. Hold on. I thank you for stopping by. I know you have a choice in your viewing booktube time. Thank you for choosing to hang out with me some. Stay tuned for more goodness, more books. Hope you have happy reading.